Rehabilitation is a broad term used to describe any efforts toward restoring elements of structure or function to an ecological system, without necessarily attempting to restore it completely to its previous state. It emphasizes the maintenance of ecosystem processes, productivity, and services. Rehabilitation of forests in the Republic of Korea is one of the famous success stories in the world. Denuded lands were replanted under the Forest Rehabilitation Program. The program was notable for the range and extent of prior planning and preparation. Let's check what contributed to this successful rehabilitation. Establishment of plan at the national level. 10-year forest rehabilitation plans. Based on field study, survey of forest soil and forest resources under the support of foreign agency like UNDP and GTZ. Consensus and participation from local people. With endless empowerment for planting activity, appeal to patriotism. Clean government and honest governmental officer. Strong leadership with Seoul movement. Until the 1970s, Korea's main energy source was fuel wood, and the economy depended greatly on agriculture. In the late 19th, up to the early half of 20th century, denuded mountains and soil erosion damaged agricultural production. Forest rehabilitation was conducted not only to restore forest, but also to protect agricultural production from soil erosion coming from the mountains just above the cropland. To this day, fuel wood remains the primary energy source for many people worldwide. In the Republic of Korea, however, there is a shift from fuel wood to charcoal, especially for heating and cooking, to reduce wood consumption. With the energy source changed, litter layer is maintained, and nutrient cycling within forests could be activated. The government also set up Seoul Nursery, which shared the profit within communities to create jobs and income opportunities such as cultivation of nuts and fruits. As a result, Korea has successfully achieved both socioeconomic development and reforestation. Economic benefits. Increase in the growing stock volume. Improved water conservation and stocked forest cover. And self-sufficient in rice supply. Public benefits. Multifunction of forests and economic valuation of forest public function. Environmental benefits. Absorption of CO2 and biodiversity. The Republic of Korea's successful reforestation shows that restoration not only changes forests, but also entire ecosystem and society. Based on lessons learned from Korea, let's now look at the science of forest restoration. Deforestation and degradation come with the loss of forest ecosystem services and even the life qualities of humans. The world lost 420 million hectares of forest through deforestation between 1990 and 2020. It means over 10 million hectares of forest lost each year for the past 30 years. More than 90% of deforestation from 1990 to 2020 occurred in the tropical region. In addition, almost 2 billion hectares of forests have been degraded. Forests provide all ecosystem services, such as clean air and water, carbon sequestration, wood production, habitats for animals and plants, and human life support. Forests need rehabilitation or restoration when a severe lack of ecosystem services is detected. Restoration efforts are also needed for disturbed lands and degraded ecosystems. Restoration targets forest structure and species composition that fits the area's environmental conditions. To identify the problem, we should know the area's current state and understand the dynamics of forest disturbances and characteristics. Forest restoration is needed when the following conditions are occurring. The total number of species or structural classes is significantly different than expected, or has a high proportion of exotic species. Reserved or halted ecological processes compared with a fully functional ecosystem. Changes in intensity and duration of disturbances, such as drought and other climatic disturbances, which result in simplification of diverse ecosystems. Forest restoration governance refers to a wider set of institutions and stakeholders at all levels, the ways in which they connect and interrelate over time, influencing the implementation of forest restoration, and the process of restoring forests. Actors involved in restoration are private, local community, experts such as forest practitioners and forest managers, government or policymakers, and domestic and international organizations. Forest restoration is not only a scientific question, it also needs policymakers that are well informed by science, suitable framework, and initiatives. We need forest managers and forest practitioners to be integrated into the process of finding solutions because they have a wealth of practical experience of what actually works and does not work. Each stakeholder has various roles in forest restoration. Their financial and technical support are necessary, from policy development to planning and implementation. Stakeholders also have different attitudes towards forest restoration based on their status, such as, are they landowners? Are they affected by the restoration efforts, and how? Do they benefit or lose from it? We should also check stakeholders' capacity to participate, as well as institutions who could support stakeholders' participation. Forest restoration is not just about planting trees, but also about restoring forest ecosystems to pre-existing health, composition, structure, and biotic integrity. The ultimate goal for forest restoration is to maintain ecological integrity by maintaining viable populations, ecosystem representation, and ecological processes. By protecting the evolutionary potential of species and ecosystems, and also by accommodating human use and needs. Restoration goals should be set based on condition and ecological characteristics of the site, social demand, and available resources. Stakeholders representing their groups at each level should be involved in decision-making for setting goals. It is important to identify specific goals, including goods and services, ecosystem functions, tree species mixtures, and desired future restoration states. If deforestation or degradation is too severe for restoration, rehabilitation can be first applied to facilitate. After setting the goals, we need to choose the appropriate approaches based on the site conditions, site potential to be restored, and available resources. There are a variety of approaches to restoration. They are passive restoration, replacement restoration, which replaces the existing ecosystem with a different, more productive type, partial restoration, where some of the ecosystem functions and the original dominant species are restored, and complete restoration. Most restoration procedures are designed either to shorten the natural successional sequence or to create a system that has a series of favorable traits that make the area better than it was before. When restoring a disturbed area to its natural state, we should recognize limitations, such as existing information can be incomplete, contradictory, or wrong. Restoration is difficult to apply at some specific or local level. Approaches can run counter to commonly accepted management practices. Approaches may run counter to economic practice or politically infeasible. Lack of expertise can create credibility crisis. Private conservation initiatives may challenge agency authority and appear to question competence. Measured success is diffuse and long-term. Forest restoration is a long-term project that needs financial investment and does not produce rapid results. Accordingly, it should consider the political, social, cultural, and economic stability due to its long-term period. Forest restoration policy provides a framework that allows to actually do the required work. Policy for forest restoration should be reflected in laws and regulations. Policies should support the development of forest restoration infrastructures, systems, and techniques. Financial support can come from the government, private sector, domestic organizations, and international organizations. In particular, the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration, running from 2021 to 2030, is protecting and reviving the ecosystems worldwide to benefit people and nature. Consequently, there will be more chances for support of forest restoration by governments and diverse international organizations. Financial support can be provided for infrastructure such as roads and forest restoration. Restoration involves various costs, including interest, property management costs, subsidy, and overhead. Restoration often adapts the ecosystem approach. An ecosystem approach is based on the application of appropriate scientific methodologies focused on levels of biological organization, which encompasses the essential structure, processes, functions, and interactions among organisms and their environment. It recognizes that humans, with their cultural diversity, are an integral component of many ecosystems. Forest restoration should have explicit goals and be executed by policies. Protocols are developed and restoration is practiced. Restoration should be monitored and evaluated through research, and then modified based on its results. Implementation requires restoration practices with concrete outputs that meet the targets. To identify activities, list the sequence of work to be performed, to decide the area, period, people who will work and be involved, and cost. Monitoring of short and long-term outcomes should be conducted in restoration practices. Adaptive management is a continuous process of monitoring, evaluation, modification based on evaluation, planning, and implementation, and can be applied to forest restoration. Feedback from monitoring allows adaptive management and indicates if further interventions are required. We can learn to analyze factors that contributed to success or failure and improve restoration practices through adaptive management.